All right, so we are live. This is my first time doing this, but hello to anyone who's here. It looks like there are lots of people that are already in here. So I'm Jonah, as you probably know because you're on my YouTube channel. You can introduce yourself.
I'm Chloe, on TikTok as Conservative Chloe, and I'm going to be debating the pro-life side of abortion.
Okay, so do you want me to start off with my opening statement, or do you want to start?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. So this is my opening statement. This is pre-written. I'm not going off the dome for this, so I'm going to be looking down and reading this. While I believe abortion is a completely ethical process, I think that it is often weaponized while both sides of the debate should be working to reduce abortion within the framework of Roe v. Wade. However, this debate will likely be about the ethical implications of abortion. I would argue that abortion is 100% ethical before 22 weeks, when 90 to 96% of all abortions have already happened. The reason for this is that I believe that personhood is what brings humans value, and once someone has personhood, they become a part of the ethical universe. There are two elements of personhood: intellectual sentience and interpersonal connectivity. These two experiences are what make the human experience unique and valuable. I would argue that our rationality, emotions, sociability, self-awareness, experiences, and aspirations are not just characteristics of our humanity, they constitute our very being. While I believe that humans cannot pinpoint when these characteristics begin to develop, we can safely say it is before 22 weeks. It is after 22 weeks. A report published by the NIH states that the development of afferent fibers occurs from 26 to 34 weeks, meaning that fetuses have an inability to process and perceive their senses before this point, as afferent fibers convey signals to the central nervous system from motor neurons. The Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists corroborates this report, stating connections from the periphery to the cortex are not intact before 24 weeks. Another government report explains that before 27 weeks, babies' brains are not well developed enough to control their bodily functions. Dartmouth professor and expert on fetal development Miguel Marin Padilla states that even though you may see reflexive fetal movement at 22 weeks, the fetus has an inability to think. Human life generally has value, but it has value for a reason, not arbitrarily. It would be intellectually dishonest and emotion-based to argue that human life is valuable purely because it is human life. This tautological platitude is weak and ineffectual, and if you rely on this point, I believe I have won the debate. I provided my criteria for personhood, and I have provided reasoning as to why fetuses before 22 weeks do not have it. That is why I believe abortion is a completely ethical process, and as such, a civil liberty.
Okay. I don't have anything like that prepared for an opening statement. I think that a lot of the things you said, like that determine personhood, I just think that a lot of those things can also be applied to living like adults, for example. Like, not like sentience, like an adult in a coma is not less of a human because they don't have sentience. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't feel like there's any like place to cut off that's like, that can't also be applied to adults that isn't conception for life.
So here's my response to that, because I've heard this argument many times before.
Yeah.
The reason that someone in a coma is different is because personhood has a definitive start and a definitive end. At death, personhood is always over. Yeah. Now, in some instances, in a coma, it is not ended yet. Somebody still has their personhood that they've obtained at some point between 24 weeks and, I guess, 3 years. So someone in a coma, right, who has not definitively lost their personhood is usually kept alive. And once it's determined that they're in a permanent vegetative state, people often pull the plug on people in comas, and that's not seen as unethical. The reason why is because that's the definitive end of personhood, which is an ethical process that we have to determine the definitive end of personhood. And once we see it, we do pull the plug. The people in comas...
Something really quick. Are we talking about like someone in a coma who is being deemed brain dead, or are we just talking about someone in a coma in general?
So the way that comas actually work practically is like for about 2 to 4 weeks, you have like an okay chance of recovery. And after that, you enter you start to enter a permanent vegetative state for which there is a very, very, very low chance that you'll ever recover. Yeah. Once you enter that permanent vegetative state, your family members are allowed to keep you alive, but it's not seen as unethical to like pull the plug, quote unquote, because there's such a high chance that your personhood is ended forever. So when I talk about that, I think that people should absolutely be kept alive for 2 to 4 weeks in that period before you've reached the vegetative state. But after that point, I think it's an ethical determination you have to make about whether personhood is definitively ended.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with what you said before, too, about that human life doesn't arbitrarily have value. I can agree with that. But what I don't agree with is I don't see, like, even if it doesn't have value in your eyes or my eyes or anything like that, I just don't think that it's fair for somebody who is of a totally separate body, because I'm pretty sure you seem like a smart guy. We can agree that it's not part of the woman's body, correct? The baby?
It depends. That's a dangerous statement to make because it's completely 100% dependent, which is shown by the fact that before
it's not physically one of her organs. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's not an organ, but it's attached by an umbilical cord and relies on the mother for nutrients and basically all of its homeostasis and bodily function.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so I don't think that it's right. Like we can agree that murdering a full-grown adult would be wrong. So
yes, absolutely.
So taking a life, because life does begin to conception, 95% of biologists can agree with that. Why is it okay for that woman to take a separate body's life? That's my question.
So the way that I see it is that, I mean, as I explained, I think that personhood is the threshold for which it's unethical to kill or stop the life of something. So like I have no issue with people eating meat, for example. Obviously, cows have some level of self-awareness and emotion, but the complexity is at such a low level that I don't feel bad. They haven't entered the ethical universe. They're not something that's significant. They don't have like thoughts and aspirations and feelings and ideas and stuff like that that humans have, which makes us unique and significant, in my opinion, which is why I think it's okay. It's not like an arbitrary distinction where I'm saying it's okay to kill some humans and not others. It's an objective distinction that I think that before 22 weeks, objectively, like it's very clear that these characteristics that I'm naming that give humans value do not exist.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just don't. Why is it that? I mean, I just don't understand how. Like, I can understand making the argument that it's not a person, but it's alive. You know, like I just because I don't see how killing a live human is okay in any sense of the word, whether you be a person or not.
Yeah, but I feel like that's like a very simplistic view of things. So like you've taken this like colloquialism, killing people is bad, which is like something that's commonly agreed upon. But I think that you're not taking the time to sit down and say why is killing a human bad. And once you make that ethical determination, I think that there's no course of action.
I thought that was pretty obvious.
Because it's human life, but that's a tautology. That doesn't mean anything. Like what is the significance of human life?
I don't know how to answer that question. It's like opinion based, you know, like. You obviously think that there's a difference between life and personhood, and I can agree with that to some extent. But like, I don't think that it's okay to take a human life, whatever development it's in.
Why not? Why not? Because I mean,
believe off of my morals and ethics that's not okay.
But what ethical standard are you using to say human life has value?
I'm not saying that all human life has value. I told you, I agree with you that not all human life arbitrarily has value. That's very true. But I also don't think that because of someone's own irresponsibility, they should be allowed to end another human life.
Well, I think that that's based off of the premise that ending another human life is unilaterally bad, when I would say that there's certain scenarios in which it's not necessarily a bad thing, considering the person doesn't have, or the fetus doesn't have personhood. It's not a person yet. Okay,
so I just like I said before, though, I don't, because you're saying that you have a different definition between personhood and life. I can agree with that, like I said, but it's still ending a human life, and that in and of itself, as a blanket term, is bad.
And I don't know. You're not explaining to me why it's bad, though. You're just saying that, and I'm supposed to arbitrarily accept that, right? Like you need to tell me why killing a human is bad.
Because I just think that ending a life in general is bad. I don't think that
that's an emotion-based argument, right? There's no rhetorical line there. There's no facts that are backing that up. That's just like a feeling.
Like certain physical characteristics of the baby that make it more valuable. Is what you're asking me for? Okay, well then I have those notes right here. By week 3, the backbone, spinal column, and nervous system are forming, liver, kidneys, and intestines begin to take shape. Day 22, the child's heart is already beating and producing blood type different than that of the mother. Week 4, the baby is already 10,000 times larger than the fertilized egg at conception. Beginning of eyes, legs, hands, mouth, and lips are present. Week 9 to 10, baby's teeth are beginning to form inside the gums. Fingernails begin to develop. Week 14, baby's heart is pumping several quarts of blood throughout its body. Week 15, baby has adult's taste buds. And month 4, 16 to 20 weeks, the bone marrow begins to form.
Okay, so cows have spines, cows have bone marrow, cows have teeth, cows have eyes, cows have blood types. Tell me what the difference between that baby and a cow is.
It's human.
But why is that important?
Because it's human. It's a human.
That's not an argument. See, that's not an argument. Like, there's always this like pro-life argument that falls apart completely based on like the platitude that human life is intrinsically valuable, and it's never justified because no one has bothered to take the time to sit down and actually think through it.
I can make the argument that there are humans out there, like humans that don't contribute to society. Those humans are invaluable. I can agree with that.
I know. I completely disagree with that.
You do?
From an ethical perspective, no, there's no living human being right now that I think deserves to die because they're not contributing anything to society.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that I think they deserve to die. I just think they're not valuable because they're not contributing anything to society. I didn't say I think they should be killed. I don't think they should be killed either. I feel like death should be reserved only for like when we're talking about capital punishment, serial murderers. That's what I think death should be reserved.
I don't think we should kill serial murderers either. I don't think that we should kill any person.
That's what I think, but okay. That doesn't have to do with abortion. Like I said,
there's so many reasons why the death penalty is stupid, and I can go through all of them, but that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about right now, like we're talking about the pro-life's reliance on an argument that isn't based in fact and relies on people being emotionally attached to the concept of human life rather than justifying the characteristics that make human life unique and important.
I think it's also important for the woman too, because I have to read off of this. These are all my notes, but I have to read off of this. Like, okay, so there's the argument that more women will die from unsafe abortions if we make it illegal. But like, from that standpoint, I don't think that not just about the baby, but about the woman, abortions are never safe. Abortions have never been safe.
They're safer than a C-section, and they're safer than a live birth.
Please.
Yeah, sure.
A 2011 study published in the British Journal of Psychiatry reported that there were dramatic changes in mental health in women who had an abortion and physical health, but I'll get to that. The women who had an abortion were 81% more likely to experience mental health struggles, 34% more likely to develop anxiety issues, 37% more likely to develop depression, 110% more likely to abuse alcohol, 155% more likely to commit suicide, and 220% more likely to abuse marijuana. Now, that being said, there's also physical harm that comes with it, such as getting an abortion can lead to future infertility, uterine infections, and damage to the cervix. So not just about the baby. I feel like abortion is also harmful to the woman, too.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to approach this from multiple angles because that's ridiculous. First of all, it's a civil liberty. You have the right to do things that harm you. But second of all, it's not harmful. That's a made-up thing. The Lancet Journal, most reputable medical journal in the world, concludes that it reviewed 44 high-quality studies done and developed in countries published between 1990 and 2011 and found that women with mental health illness are more likely to get an abortion, not that abortion contributes to mental health illness. The conclusion of the study was that mental health is not at all impacted by abortion. Furthermore, there's like postpartum depression and anxiety that occurs in mothers that do have birth, and no one is doing a comparative analysis of that. They're just doing abortion to people that don't have pregnancies, which isn't like a realistic comparison. So there's so many issues with the mental health argument. It basically doesn't exist. It's a phantom argument created basically by like the Lozier Institute and stuff like that. But furthermore, abortion is 24 times safer than a C-section, which is the safest form of birth. Not in developing countries. In developing countries, it's even more so. It's 100 times more dangerous to get a C-section than it is in the United States of America. But the idea that women should have their civil liberties taken away because it's something that's potentially dangerous is ridiculous. 95% of people who get an abortion say that they are happy with their decision, compared to 70% of economics majors who say they regret majoring in economics. Now, the implication that we shouldn't let people major in economics because the majority of them regret it is ridiculous. And the implication that we shouldn't let people get abortion.
But what you said about it being a civil liberty just isn't true. I don't think it's a civil liberty to end the life of a human. Whether it's a person or not, ending the life of a human, it's not another person's civil liberty.
Well, I think that I think that it absolutely is, because I think that your human rights are there's some sort of higher, not necessarily a God, not necessarily a higher power, but there is some sort of like objective governing force of the universe, and that objective governing force gives us civil liberties and civil rights. Lots of them are enumerated in the Constitution. Lots of them aren't. I think anyone who is not a person does not have any of those civil liberties or civil rights.
Well, I can't. Human rights, and if it's not a human, what species is it? Like,
it's a human, it's not a person. I think it's personal rights. That would be a better classification. I misspoke. I should not have said human rights.
Well, I personally think human rights do begin in the womb, because, like, again, the right to live is fundamental in order for you to have all other rights. You have to be alive to have rights, and so the right to live is fundamentally more important than the right to choose. So I feel like that overrides the right to live. Well, it's more like the right not to be killed, I should say, because you don't have the right to stay alive, I suppose, but you have the right to not be killed. And so, I mean, yeah, so I feel like
I agree for all persons. For all persons.
Than the right to
but
shoot.
I still have not heard a legitimate argument as to why there's anything valuable about a fetus that cannot think or feel or experience things and has no emotional connections to anything.
Starting at 8 weeks, recent
studies
show that. Yeah, recent studies do say that.
So let me explain to you, to all the viewers who are watching this idea that fetuses can feel pain at 8 weeks. They can't. What happens, they do have developed nerves at 8 weeks, so their reflexes are similar to that of people who feel pain, because when you feel pain, you naturally have a reflex. However, as I said, afferent neurons aren't developed until 26 weeks, which is what allows you to process pain. It takes the motor neuron. It's a signal that goes from the motor neuron to your central nervous system and allows you to understand that you're feeling pain. Fetuses can't feel pain. Like, that's just like a made up thing that people want you to feel emotional.
Feeling pain. But then again, like, if you're in a coma and someone stabs you, you're not going to wake up. You're not going to feel that pain. So not being able to feel pain does not differentiate between a person and a life.
Well, the reason I would say you shouldn't stab someone in a coma is because it's a naturally malicious action, not because it's going to cause a person in a coma pain.
It's to end a human life too, but
no, it's not. No,
I'm using it as an example. If you stab somebody in a coma, they're not going to know you're in pain.
What utility do you get out of stabbing someone in a coma? The only possible outcome is that eventually they feel pain as a result of that. Getting an abortion, that's completely different. That has so many different implications for the woman's life in the future. That's so different than stabbing someone in a coma.
I personally think that argument is sexist, because saying that women have to get abortions to be successful, I completely disagree.
No, that's why I'm pro-choice. That's why I believe that it's a civil liberty that women have the right to. I don't believe in enforcing abortion on anyone. That's ridiculous. I think what China did was absolutely awful with their one-child rule. They absolutely should have never done that. That's awful. It's also a civil liberty to have a kid if you want to have a kid.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't see it, like I've been saying, I don't see it as a civil liberty to end a human life. And I think the difference between you and me is that you don't see it as a person. And I think there's a difference between, I think even though I don't see it as a person, there are too many things constituting personhood that could also be applied to living adults in comas or that are dealing with other issues that don't make it different from a fetus in that way.
Right, but it's a threshold thing. So arguably, until you're born, you don't have personhood because you've never had any experience other than being in the womb. And I'm not going to make that argument.
Does the vaginal canal confer personhood magically? Like, does the vaginal canal magically confer personhood?
No, it's your cerebral and prefrontal cortex, which confer personhood.
So the day before a baby is born, you just said, when a baby is born, that's what makes it a person. It doesn't have personhood. It's the idea. I mean, I'm not making this argument. I'm just saying that it could legitimately be made that the first time that you have a human experience is the day that you're born. And I think that that's a valid argument that one can make. Now, I'm not going to make that argument, but what I am saying is definitively before the cerebral and prefrontal cortex develop it's starting at 22 weeks, there's no personhood. Definitively. Yeah. Like it could be at 30 weeks. It could be at 35 weeks. It could be at 40 weeks. It could be only after birth. But definitively at 22, it has not started to develop. Yeah, what I'm saying.
It's a threshold thing.
So when you're being rushed to the hospital because you've had a heart attack and you're in the ambulance and they say the way they decide whether or not you're dead or not is because your heart has stopped beating. If your heart has stopped beating, you are pronounced dead. And that's another thing that's big to me is that if you're pronounced dead when your heart stops beating, why aren't you pronounced alive once your heart is beating?
Well, I think that you are pronounced alive, and that's why you have the study saying 95% of biologists say that cellular human life starts at conception. But then that's not an ethical conversation that you're having. That's a biological conversation that you're having. It has no implications in terms of sentience or connectivity.
Yeah. So but that's my question then. If it's a biological argument of that. So, but you're not saying that life. Are you saying that life starts at conception? Because I feel like you haven't been saying.
Yeah, life absolutely starts at conception.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not.
Yeah, and there's no value. There's absolutely no value.
Okay, but if it's still life, human life of the human species, why is that okay to kill that?
What do you mean? You can't explain to me why it's not. The reason that it's okay is because you're not taking away someone's intellectual sentience or personhood.
It's human, but that's what I'm saying though. It's I personally believe that once it is been determined it's a human life, because it's in the Roe v. Wade bill that if 100% of these biologists who specify in life before birth, then Roe v. Wade could definitively be reversed. That's part of that bill. So I feel like that.
Well, it's a Supreme Court decision. It's not a law, and the way that Roe v. Wade actually, if you look at the case law, it's actually like a review of what's commonly accepted philosophically in terms of Western philosophy as the start of ethical human life, and then it says that ethical human life does not start in the womb. The Romans didn't think that. The Greeks didn't think that. Even in the medieval ages, people didn't think that, and therefore, like, there's no definition of personhood where you should have civil liberties or civil rights before a certain point. And that's why abortion. I'm not against states imposing abortion restrictions that stop you from getting abortions in the third trimester. Like, I don't have an issue with that necessarily. I just think that definitively, and like you said this is like your personal opinion that you think all human life is valuable. That's okay, but that's an opinion, right? Other people are entitled to their opinions as well, and I think that's what Roe v. Wade says. It says women are entitled to their opinion about when personhood starts and how valuable personhood is versus human life, and you are too, which is why you don't have to get an abortion.
Like, again, though, like I said, with the personhood argument, there's so many things with that could also be applied to an adult, and I don't like not being able, not being able to feel pain doesn't constitute sentience. Like, it just, like, so many of those.
Every human is so at such a, like, so much higher. Like, it's not our place to determine people's degrees of sentience once there's a chance that they have it, right? But when they definitively do not have the organs that allow them to have sentience, that is the point at which personhood definitively has not started. That's what I'm saying. You can't make that argument for humans because you cannot know. However, for fetuses, you can know. And if you provide me evidence that sentience can occur before this 22-week period, I'd be willing to shift the terms of my statement.
I think the earliest that a baby has been born and survived was like 21 weeks, right? It was like
right. So even shifting it to 21 weeks, I would not be opposed to hearing out that argument. But if 3% of babies born at 22 weeks are viable and not don't have like severe birth deformities, it's extremely uncommon. And at 20 and 21 weeks, it's like astronomically uncommon. And I think that if you can get a C-section, that should always be the alternative that you go for, just in case.
Over what? Natural birth?
No, over abortion. Like because there are states that allow third trimester abortion. I believe, and maybe I think it's just in New York right now. But but I believe that generally, like, that's a better alternative, just for the ethical purposes of not making someone feel bad about thinking that someone was like a person was murdered, even if they weren't. However, I just think there's no legitimate argument for value before 22 weeks.
And I don't, but that's the thing, I don't think it has to be value. I think it has to be human for it to not be okay. Because
you understand why that doesn't mean anything to me, though, right?
What?
You understand why that doesn't mean anything to me, though, right? And you can't impose the meaning of that.
I don't expect it to, yeah.
Right. So you understand that you also can't impose that meaning on other people, right?
But again, like I said, if we can agree that life begins at conception, and we can all agree that fundamentally ending a human life is bad, then I don't think it fundamentally is. I can't agree with you on that. Again, that's the problem, though. And I think that and that's where we have to agree to disagree, is that in all cases, ending a human life is bad.
Well, So you've agreed to disagree with me that in all that
I'm not gonna change your mind. I understand that's pointless.
Yeah. Okay. So with that logical line, that means women are allowed to get abortions because they have decided it's a legitimate thing to disagree with you on this point, right?
Yes,
that's all we're saying.
I understand. Okay. But when
you're more pro-choice,
end a human life, that's when I feel like it's my business. I don't want to control women's bodies. I don't want to control women's lives. Any of that. I just think that when we're talking about the fundamental right to life and the fundamental right to choose, the right to life is more important than that.
I don't think that there is a right to life for anyone who's not a person. And I think, like, here's an analogy. Here's an analogy.
You're called human rights, not person rights. That's what I'm saying.
That's just a semantics thing. The reason that philosophers throughout history have said that human rights are ordained on us by God is because of some, like, significant factors that we have that other animals do not have. But if an alien came to Earth, let's say an alien looked just like me, it was just as cute as I am, and had, like, the same thoughts and ideas and experiences as I do, but it was an alien, it had different DNA, would you advocate for killing that alien? Would you say it's ethical to kill that alien? Why not?
Because I don't know if it looked just like you and it was just on a different planet. Like, I don't know. I just don't think that would be right. That's like
Why? So why would it be wrong?
I can't argue that point. I just don't think it's wrong. Like that's just
So it's just like an emotional thing, right?
exactly,
It's not like there's no.
I have a problem admitting that. Yeah, I feel like
if being pro-life is just an emotional thing, then you can admit that pro-choice is the more rationally based idea.
I believe because when a human life starts, that's when I feel like that's why they're called human rights. Human rights start in the womb because it's
that's a semantics thing. That's a semantics thing. That doesn't that doesn't have any real implications.
That's a very important thing.
The nature of human rights is our personhood. Like that's what it comes from. And we would not have human rights without our personhood in the same way that cows do not have human rights because they are not people. Yeah, and an alien would have human rights. An alien that behaved just like me would have, or not human rights. It would have rights because it's a person.
That alien, yeah, probably whether it's right or not. But yeah, I just like I said though, from they're called human rights for a reason, and I think that's.
I understand the pathological impulse to say that all human life is valuable, but I think when you really sit down and have an ethical conversation using utilitarianism or deontology, you realize that human rights do not start until personhood, and that abortion is not a violation of any human rights.
I can't agree with that because it's ending a human life, and the most fundamental human right is life. So.
Well, I feel like we're just going in circles.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that too.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about anything else. I will debate you on anything else if you want to transition to another topic.
I'm pretty open to anything. I mean, I'm bored.
Do you want to talk about why Medicare for all would be the best system for America?
I guess I don't agree with that statement, but sure.
Okay, let's hear your criticisms and I'll convert you, or hopefully.
No, you're not going to convert me. Good try.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that when we look at a system like what Canada has, for example, I don't remember the exact numbers. Hang on, let me just look it up.
You know that we wouldn't have Canada's system, right? You know, like that's not the system that we would have.
That's a Medicare for all system, is it not?
No, there are multiple types. So there's multiple things. So Singapore basically has a public health waiver. It gives all of its citizens a set amount of money, and then you get to go spend it on whatever healthcare you want. Germany has like a public health fund, which is just like a bunch of nonprofits that aren't allowed to make money off of providing insurance, that provide universal insurance to people. Britain and Canada have a nationalized system, which means the government runs their hospitals and their insurance, and then you can get gap insurance if you want it. And then there are lots of nations with single payer insurance, which means that the government runs only the insurance system, but then private corporations run the hospitals. So we would have.
Would you propose?
So the one that I like the most and the one that we have on the table is in Switzerland has like a private system, but it's just heavily regulated and it's cheaper than the United States, but still more expensive than the other nations. So the one that I would propose is the hospitals are still run privately, and the tab is picked up by the insurance companies, and the insurance companies are picked up by the government. It's the most efficient system. People say the government doesn't run efficiently, but Social Security has never missed a single payment. I think it's 80-year history. It's an extremely efficient program. That's like broad consensus. Donald Trump promised not to cut entitlements for a reason. It's a super effective system, and that's basically what would happen in terms of healthcare. Think of it as a school choice waiver for healthcare. That's basically what Medicare for all is in America.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think it's super baseline as well. I don't think it's my job, your job, anybody else's job to pay for somebody else's healthcare. I don't think
you already do though. You pay taxes and it goes towards Medicare. It goes towards the VA.
I know, but I don't agree with that. I feel like that should be completely illegal. I feel like that should not be a thing.
Why? You don't think we should be paying for veteran health care?
Anybody else's job to pay for someone else's health care.
So you think that we should just let veterans be homeless and not receive health care?
I think if they can't pay for it, it's their own fault.
Okay, that's an interesting take. So they go out overseas and then lose.
I have the utmost respect for veterans, and that's why there are charity programs and stuff like that. But I don't.
Charity doesn't work.
Well, okay then. I'm sorry to say, but if you can't afford health care, it's your own fault.
One that's completely false. First of all, there are 40 million Americans that are underinsured. 50% of those 40 million Americans are working people. The wages in America just aren't high enough to provide healthcare. I'd be fine with another alternative solution that requires employers to provide reasonable healthcare that keeps everyone alive.
I can agree with that. When you go to your job, you get healthcare for having that job. I can agree with that. Yeah.
And right now, there are lots of people that are working people, full-time working people who don't have healthcare or will go into debt even though they do have insurance healthcare. I think that that's another viable solution. However, the Donald Trump, there's a piece of legislation, or not a piece of legislation, there's a lawsuit by 20 Republican states. They're challenging the premise of ACA's the entire framework. And what would happen if they got that bill through is pre-existing conditions would no longer be protected, and costs would skyrocket to an astronomical level as a result of insurance companies picking healthier pools, and then anyone who's unhealthy would have to pay an extremely high cost. So that's the Republican solution. Now, the Democratic solution is that everyone somehow gets healthcare. They pay into it with a 4% premium. Every single person in society pays into it with a 4% premium, which I feel like is fair.
Pays into society? Like we're talking every person is paying these taxes.
If you make any money whatsoever, you pay into it. Yeah.
Okay, then they're not getting refunded. Is that correct? Like the way they are now with Social Security?
I actually disagree with the premise that you shouldn't get a small refund if you don't use any healthcare. I think that Singapore does a good job with that in their system. However, you would not be getting refunded. No, you do pay person.
If everyone is paying and everyone is paying like a flat percentage amount, I can agree with that. It's when
that's
only
the
the
system.
rich are paying for it that I have an issue.
No, but that's the system. That's the way it would work. And the healthcare is paid for in terms of American tax dollars solely by a 4% flat tax rate. And then there are other tax increases for other programs, which you can dispute point by point. But the way that Medicare for All would work in America is a flat tax, which I think is completely fair.
And I think I agree with that too. I feel like a flat tax would be good, but not on income, because that's legalized theft, literally. If it were
it's not. Taxation isn't theft, it's rent. Taxation is rent.
Tax is legalized theft. Yes, it is.
No, it's absolutely not. It's the cost of living in a society, which is the only thing that allows you to generate income. If we did not live in a society with a power structure, every time you made money, someone would just come and take it from you. You are paying rent to the government for all the services that make our society prosperous enough to generate enough revenue.
Yeah, and I don't think there should be no taxes. I just think all of these taxes should be sales taxes. I don't think that it's ethical to take money from somebody's income that they worked hard for.
Yeah, and the only reason that they have the ability to work hard for it is because the government exists. The government is the sole reason for all of that. There's no such thing as generating value absent of a power structure, which is why you don't see any nomadic people amassing any wealth whatsoever. As soon as they start to amass wealth, they establish a power structure to protect it. So if you do not like tax rates, you can advocate against them. You can try and democratically change them. But at the end of the day, tax rates are just the cost of living in a society.
Yeah, and like I said, again, I don't have an issue with taxes. I have an issue with income tax because, again, these people have generated this money. Whatever they do, whatever they've done, they went to school, whatever they did, and to take that money from them. And I think the main issue is giving it to other people in the form of when other people aren't paying taxes, like the lower classes and stuff, or they are, but it's just getting refunded. You know how it works. And I think that's what makes it.
I think. Well, first of all, there is something that we can fundamentally agree on. Right now in America, it's better to stay on food stamps and Section 8 housing and get your disability benefits from one person living in your house than it is to get a minimum wage job, which is an issue, right? The reason that you see people. The reason that you see people abusing the welfare system is because there's there is very, very prevalent lack of of career opportunities that allow people to actually amass wealth and live at a comfortable standard. Now, if we establish a 21st century NLRA, I feel like that would all change immediately. But the thing is, there are 40 million working poor in America, and for all of those people, being on food stamps and being on supplemental food assistance and being on housing assistance is just as comfortable a standard of living as working 10 hours a day and then coming home and not having health care, right? Does that not make sense? So that's an issue that we need to fix in the first place.
I feel like okay, sorry. I feel like minimum wage jobs should be reserved only for teenagers and people who are here because, let's say, I don't support illegal immigration, but if an illegal immigrant needed that job, that would be that job. I don't think that it's not a living wage. Minimum wage is not a living wage, but there's a reason. Exactly.
That's the issue, though, because our economy is dependent on minimum wage workers.
There's a reason for that. I feel like
it's because corporations are abusive.
I disagree. I don't think corporations are abusive.
Absolutely, they are. People on the right are fine with getting all of their money taken as long as it's not by the government, which is ridiculous. You are generating so much more value than you are getting back in terms of your wages, and workers should collectivize and demand that they get paid more. When we abolished the NLRA in 1978, union participation was 35%, and now it's 10%. It's been a steady decline, and the lobbyists lobby against Congress to make sure that unions are not allowed to be formed, which is ridiculous. It's emblematic of the corporatist nature of America, but the point is that workers are being abused while they're generating so much more revenue than they're reaping in benefits, and they should get more money. CEOs should not see I think 900% increase in their pay while workers see a 0% increase in their pay.
And I can agree with that, the 900% versus 0% thing. I do think that and when we're talking about like CEOs making a lot of money, I don't think that while their workers are not making as much, that's exactly fair. But I also think a lot of the time the CEOs have higher education, they worked harder to get there, and so they deserve the higher pay.
Yeah, I am not advocating for a janitor getting paid the same amount of money as a NASA rocket scientist. I would never advocate for that. What I am advocating for is in a system where the fry cook at McDonald's is generating, let's say, $200,000 worth of revenue. They have a comfortable life while they're providing to their kids, and they have the ability to provide a good life to their kids. Like, that's a system that I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating for a system where the fry cook makes the same amount of money as a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think that those, like I said, those jobs that I feel like those jobs are meant for like teenagers. It's not supposed to be a living wage. It's
the economy collapses if they're only available to teenagers. There are not enough teenagers to fill those jobs. Like, that's just the reality of the situation.
I'm saying that, yeah, like the vast majority of those jobs should go to teenagers. Yeah. Like, well, of course there are going to be adults who take that job. It's not a living wage and it shouldn't be because there's
not enough teenagers though. And
enough or isn't challenging enough to provide a living wage.
You do realize that wages are not a market, right? Like, that it's naturally exploitative. Like, you don't get to value your labor at all when you work for someone. Like, if I worked at McDonald's and I'm making $7.25 an hour, which isn't the minimum wage in DC, but whatever. Let's assume that it is. And I'm making $7.25 an hour. How do I increase my pay?
How do you increase your pay?
Without going to another job. At that job, yeah.
You can't.
Which means it's not a market. Because as my work becomes more valuable, I don't get to increase the cost of my work, which means it's not a market. It's an exploitative process.
That's the thing, though. Your work isn't... If you're a fry cook at McDonald's, your work is not necessarily... I guess... I don't want to say it's not valuable because it is, but like it's not enough to make a living wage versus a minimum wage. And I don't even think there should be a minimum wage. But, you know.
That's ridiculous. That's just condemning lots of people who live in poverty.
I don't think we should ask the government to solve problems they created. That's how I see it.
What problem did the government create?
I mean, I don't know.
Are you implying that without Section 8 housing, homelessness would be lower, or without SNAP, there would be less hungry people, or without the government providing utilities, there'd be less people with utilities?
I feel like it would, though, without these programs, it's incentive to do better.
So you genuinely, like, and you were being 100% serious when you say that if the government stopped providing Section 8 housing, homelessness rates would go down.
I'm not saying that. No, I just think that it's incentive. I think it's incentive. I think I have a feeling more people would do better, but we don't really have proof of that because we've never had a system like that before.
Well, everywhere where they've tried to market it hasn't worked for essential goods, and the reason why is elasticity doesn't exist for essential goods. If you need something with a short time horizon, you just need that thing. Whatever the price is, you'll pay the price. Which is why when you see in the healthcare market with when they provide price transparency tools, costs actually go up because instead of having the $300 option and the $600 option, they only offer you the $600 option because now you can see both of them. So they just eliminate the $300 option altogether because they know that they can charge you for the $600 option. It's like the idea of markets fixing everything is just a myth that Adam Smith and Milton Friedman have told the right, and they just don't exist in reality. Like, markets do not work for essential goods.
You do realize that capitalism is necessary to have socialism because you have to have money in order to redistribute it.
Well, market socialism, absolutely not.
Can you explain what you think the definition is?
Market socialism would be a system in which all of enterprises are not owned as a whole by society, but owned by the workers of the enterprise. And worker co-ops are proven to be significantly more successful than normal businesses. When they've been tried in the Western world. There are a lot of them in Scandinavia, but there are lots in America, and the ones in America are more successful. Now, I'm not a socialist. I want to make that clear. I'm not a socialist.
Yeah,
I just think that there are lots of market breakdowns, and I think it's the government's responsibility to fill in those market breakdowns and make the market more of a market where the market, like, it just doesn't self-correct in reality. It's just abusive, and if it does self-correct, it's at the expense of human lives, which I think is an issue, right?
Well, I think it begs a deeper question, like, why are these people suffering?
What do you mean, why are they suffering?
Why are they poor?
Because the American system is designed to keep 40 million working people poor. There are not enough jobs for those 40 million people to emigrate to higher paying jobs. There just aren't enough jobs. That's literally a like an impossibility. Like, people
like Trump has created what is it, like 7 million jobs?
Well, less than Obama. By
yeah,
about 47,000 a month. But
I'm just saying that jobs have been created.
So is that the pinnacle of American society? Is that the best that we're aiming for? 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, 40 million Americans with insufficient health care.
I think that if people can control how well they do in life, every
individually,
leads to a consequence, whether positive or negative. Every choice
individually, sure.
Yeah.
But what happens if I'm a fry cook at McDonald's? If I'm a fry cook at McDonald's and I consider myself a fairly intelligent, hardworking guy, if I'm a fry cook at McDonald's, I have no doubt that eventually I'll become the manager of that McDonald's. However, then someone else becomes the fry cook, and then they're poor and can't afford basic life-saving goods. The idea of individual mobility existing, and individual mobility is rapidly decreasing in America, but the idea of individual mobility existing does not necessarily mean that there is an accessible standard, like good standard of living for all Americans. Like, you're just conflating two things. Like my dad, for example, he grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in the 70s. His family was not very well off, and he did extremely well himself. Now, and now I live a very comfortable life as a result of my father's hard work. Now, I'm glad that was possible, but each of the 2,000 other poor kids at his high school could not have done the same thing. Like, they literally could not have all gone to a prestigious university. Like, that's an impossibility. That's a flaw of the American system.
I'm not saying that everybody has that ability. I'm just saying that what you do is up to you. And that's what's so great about capitalism, is that it's like the freer the market, the freer the people. You have more choice when it comes to this. And
you don't. It's just you're being controlled by a corporation instead of a government.
No,
it's literally just a different person controlling
you.
Again,
we need corporations to provide us jobs and to provide us with goods.
Sure, but we don't need them to be exploitative. If you look at a system like Denmark or whatever, Denmark has a higher labor force participation rate and much higher, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, all of them have higher labor force participation rates than ours, meaning more people work, education is free, so social mobility is a lot higher, and people are a lot happier in those societies than they are in the United States. I literally do not see what's wrong with that.
And then there's also a 50 to 60% tax rate.
Who cares? They're happier. They enjoy that 50-60% tax rate because it provides a higher standard of living. It provides a higher standard of living.
I would leave this country if that's how high the tax.
Okay, then you're allowed to leave. That's the beautiful thing about a democracy. If you think that the democratically elected cost of living in a society is too high, you're allowed to leave.
Yeah, and I feel like taxation, though, is more exploitative than anything else.
It's not exploitative whatsoever.
And you're giving it to others, and that is a problem. It is Robin Hood.
Are you saying that Robin Hood was not a hero? Is the implication that in the story of
money from the rich and gave it to the poor, and that's
there is absolutely if you take $1 from a rich person and hand it to a poor person, I would be against that. Now, if you acknowledge that there are systems that allow the rich person to succeed and say that everyone at childhood deserves the exact same access to all of those systems, and then you use the money that the rich person generated using those systems to give it back to those systems, I feel like there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I can't even fathom why anyone would say that there's anything wrong with redistribution in that method in terms of making an equitable future for every single child in society.
It's not about equal outcome. It's about equality of opportunity.
Exactly.
So where
right now, poor people go to underfunded schools. Poor people have less access to healthcare. They have much higher chances of experiencing mental health trauma and much lower chances of having counseling for that mental health trauma. They're severely at risk of being malnourished at a young age, which leads to like early stages of brain development, which impacts your intellectual abilities for the rest of your life. These are the things for which we can say it is ethical to grant them equal opportunity at a young age, which is the stuff that I'm advocating for.
With equal opportunity, sure, you might
not.
No,
you're not. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. A right and an opportunity are absolutely different things.
You might not be in the best situation, and I
so
get
then you don't
that,
have an opportunity. You don't have an equal opportunity. No, you don't.
Everybody has equal opportunity.
It is extremely ignorant to pretend like the law is the only institution which governs your success.
Fine, call me ignorant. I don't really care.
I'm just saying, do you genuinely believe that the law is the only institution in America?
I feel like it's the most important one.
I'd say that your socioeconomic status is the most important determinant of how successful you will be in the future, which is corroborated by. So you're saying that you know what? First of all, let's start with this. Define opportunity for me.
I feel like opportunity is just what allows you to move forward in society, to have social mobility, like we were talking about.
Okay, and so a head start is something that allows you to move forward. So a head start would increase your opportunity, right? So you don't think anyone gets a head start in America?
I feel like people who, like, let's say you're born into like a poor family, like that whole situation you gave me before, being born into a poor family, not going to a good school, etc. Like, I feel like while those people may not have the same privileges as somebody who was richer, it's easier for them to get into a college because
you're crazy. No, you're crazy. That's stupid. That's stupid.
In their school.
No, that doesn't happen. If you look at the educational opportunities at the schools, like there are kids that go to like the best or the worst schools in Chicago, get straight A's, 4.0, go to U Chicago and drop out immediately because they can't keep up with the coursework.
Yeah.
And that's because they're not providing equal opportunities in the public educational system. And the reason for that is
that school that's super high up.
You do.
No, you don't. You don't.
So tell me what you would do. Tell me what you would do if you're poor and you live in Chicago. Your mom makes $30,000 a year. You don't live with your dad. Your inbound school is trash. There are no other schools that you can go to that are public schools. What would you do?
I feel like that's not one thing you brought up in there is not having a father. I feel like fatherless homes are a much big issue with that too.
Okay, I agree, and that also contributes to your privilege and your opportunity.
I agree.
So we can agree that there are differences in opportunity for people.
It can contribute to privilege because people who don't grow up in homes with fathers are much more likely to commit crime and choose that worse lifestyle.
Okay, sure.
But again, that's a choice. Choosing that crime-ridden lifestyle.
Choosing to not have a father?
No. Choosing to go into that crime-ridden lifestyle, like that's a choice.
On an individual level, maybe, but not on a macro level. There cannot exist a society in which every single person who is born fatherless does not become a criminal. That's not possible.
I agree with that.
So let's
like it's an individual choice. Like
okay. So now let's just say they all deserve the opportunity to not become criminal. Every single one of them deserves the opportunity to not become a criminal at a young age. So what can we do to make it so that people who are fatherless do not? Every single one of them does not have to become a criminal.
We can't.
We could though. We could.
How?
We absolutely could.
Other people.
What?
How though? We can't control other people.
This is just like such a simple-minded idea of like what causes people to commit crimes. Why do you think people commit crimes? Would you commit a crime?
Would I personally?
Yeah. Would you commit a crime?
No, probably not.
Why not? Why not? Tell me why you wouldn't commit a crime.
I understand that there's a law and I understand that it's wrong.
Okay, so how do you feel about the people that are protesting right now and breaking their stay-at-home orders? They're breaking the law.
I mean, okay. I mean, we have the right to protest.
They're breaking the law. Who cares? Okay, how do you feel about slaves? I do
not agree with them breaking the law. No.
So you think that they should go home and that they should not protest?
I mean, if they have if you're telling me that it's
deferring to law in all cases is never going to be an intelligent decision. The reason why is because man-made laws never coincide with ethical laws completely.
I could agree with that.
But regardless, you're conflating individual responsibility with like large macro trends. Like you have to accept, and this is just a fact, that the poorer people are, the more inclined to crime that they are, and that people should not be born poor so that they are not more inclined to crime. Not only is that a benefit to them, it provides them with more opportunities.
Again, but if people are born poor, it's a cycle. It's because their parents were didn't.
And that's not their fault. That's not their fault. You're blaming someone for their parents' decisions.
Yeah,
and also that's also not true. That's also not true.
I don't think it should be like that. It's just the way it is. Though.
Okay, so you don't think it should be like that?
No, I don't feel like kids.
Cool.
Should be affected by their parents' own stupidity. That's
okay. I agree with you, which is why I think that all kids deserve access to quality education, access to quality nutrition, access to mental health counseling, and access to healthcare. We can agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. So if we can agree that all kids deserve those things and that all kids don't have them right now, then I am completely fine with you taking the position. I agree that all
kids deserve them, but again, if it's up to the parent to pay for it and they can't, then it's not our job to pay for it.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
No, it's not.
You have an ethical responsibility to be generous.
No, I don't. It is not my ethical responsibility to pay for other people.
You know what an ethical responsibility is?
It's not. It's not.
What's the right thing to do? What's the nicer thing to do?
To pay for somebody else's stuff.
Do you give to charity?
Not. What?
You believe in charity, right?
I do, because
Why?
it's not legalized theft, unlike tax.
Taxation is not legalized theft. We've already been through
I'm
this.
not going to budge on that.
Yeah, well, you're objectively wrong. You're objectively wrong. You're objectively
No,
wrong.
right. I'm not. I make the money. The government.
No, the government makes the money. The government makes the money. The government makes the money.
No, the government makes the money because they're taking my money from me.
The government makes the money because the only reason that you are able to make any money is because you live in a society, and you've agreed to that. And
yeah, but you can have a society without an overbearing government. That's very possible.
Sure, that's a nice idea, but a society without an overbearing government is still going to have taxes, and those taxes aren't theft.
Yeah, like I said, I agree that there should be taxes, but I believe it should be.
So you're okay with you're okay with theft, but when it's theft that you don't like, you're not okay with it.
Not theft. Sales tax is not theft because you can choose what you buy, and you will be choosing how much.
You can choose to not make money. You can choose to decline your income. No one will do that.
Yeah, you can, but is that smart to try to live? No.
No, it's not smart, and the reason why is because the society is
legalized theft. It's like
it's not legalized theft. It's a choice. Making money's a choice. Making money's a choice. You're just saying this, and it means absolutely nothing. I'm sorry. Everyone watching knows it means absolutely nothing to say taxation is legalized theft. It's the cost of rent.
Followers, but okay. I mean, I don't know what you say to that.
It's literally just rent for living in a society. There's no theory behind this like super selfish claim that taxation is theft. There's no legitimate ideology behind it.
Think about it.
It's not.
Like literally, all you have to do is think.
The government makes the money. So
no, they don't. They don't make.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They could tax 100%, and that would be ethical. And that's some. Yeah, I would, and I wouldn't advocate for a 100% tax rate because I think it would disincentivize efficiency. But
I agree with that for sure.
But it wouldn't be unethical because you have the ability to leave the society if you really want to leave the society. But also, if you reinvest your money in a society, what?
Yeah, that's true. You do have the right to leave. That doesn't mean it's not unethical.
Why not? It's a choice. You're paying into a social contract when you stay somewhere.
Well, I think the vast majority of I think we could agree that a society that would tax people like 100% or something up near like there, just hypothetically, is going to be a dictatorship of some kind. And so like in the vast majority of countries or a communist country, a lot of times people can't leave and they have to flee. There's a difference.
Yeah, and I disagree with that. But in a democratic society like the one that we have in the United States, if they established a 100% tax rate, there would be nothing unethical about that. And because if you have the opportunity to leave, you're paying into a social contract that agrees to the laws that are set by the government that you're living under. So
yeah, like I said, we're a democratic society right now. But if we were to have a system,
no, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous conflation. I'm going to stop you before you even start saying that we would become socialist or communist or authoritarian if we established 100% tax rate. This is a hypothetical. This is a hypothetical.
I know.
So hypothetically, that just doesn't happen. Like that's a ridiculous implication. Especially in the hypothetical that I'm creating in my head. But regardless, I think that obviously taxation isn't an unethical thing, and taxation of the wealthy absolutely isn't an unethical thing either. It's not.
Why is it right to take money from people like their hard-earned money?
I explained it to you, and all the viewers understand. I'm sure that hard-earned money is. I never
understand why it's okay.
It's a product of so if I take out a loan, right? Like I want to start a business, I take out a loan. Let's say like however much money, like $100,000 or whatever. Do I not have to pay the loan back?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not paying the loan back?
Because you're supposed to, right?
Yeah, you should. Why do I have to pay the loan back?
Because that's like because you took the money from them, like
the terms of the agreement are that you're going to give them the money for the copying machine. Why do you have to give them the copying machine?
You don't. If you took it and they gave it to you did.
They gave it to you and said you have to pay me $5,000 for this copying machine.
Oh,
right?
then yeah, you should pay for it.
Okay, so why are you paying for it?
Because it's an exchange of goods.
Okay, so you agree that businesses benefit from the security that the United States provides, right?
Yeah, I guess.
So if the United States says our security costs 100% of your income, what's unethical about that? You can move somewhere else if you don't like it. You can not start a business if you don't like it. It's the exact same thing. They're providing a good or service that allows your business to function, and they're charging you a certain amount for it, and you have to pay that. There's nothing unethical about that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything unethical about the situation you presented. But what I do think is unethical. But when we're talking about like redistribution of wealth just in and of itself, that like money going from the upper class to the lower class in the form of welfare, that is unethical because they did not work for that money.
You're looking at this. You think it's like point A to point B, rich to poor, but in reality, it's the government is charging you a certain price for the security that they provide. You don't have to start a business if you don't like the price for the security that the government provides, and then the government decides what to do, which will maximize prosperity for society, which I would argue is the government's job. That's just a very logical thing for me.
No, the government's job is
maximizing prosperity, providing everyone housing. I think that that's a good thing. China has reduced extreme poverty, not because they care about the people in China, but because they care about the appearance of cleanliness, which I think is also something that a government, I mean, I think China has an awful authoritarian government, but I would argue that whatever the government's incentive in terms of maximizing prosperity is, if it's a democratically elected government, there's nothing wrong with them pursuing that objective of prosperity.
But like, I feel like, don't you agree that it's the individual's job to reach for prosperity? It shouldn't be up to the government.
No, it's not your job. You can do it if you want. The government's job. The government has a duty to do so.
It shouldn't be the government's job to push you. You should do that on your own. That's how I see
it. I mean, you have a right. You have the liberty to do it on your own, but you should be able to stay alive without working. I fundamentally believe that you should be able to stay alive without working. I don't think anyone should die because they don't work.
I disagree with that. If you're choosing not to work, not if you can't work. If you can't work, it's a little bit different. But if you're choosing not to work, no. I completely disagree with that.
I'd still say that you deserve to stay alive. From an ethical perspective,
well, you deserve to stay alive, but it's not my job to make sure you stay alive.
Okay, well, we're in a world where we have a binary choice. Either you can let poor people die, or you can keep poor people alive by paying a small percentage of your income. Which one are you going to do?
I would not pay a small.
Okay, so you were fine with letting people die. I'm not fine with letting people die. That's where we diverge.
I'm not the one who said you are not going to go out and work. I'm not the one who said
that. And you're fine with, and also in practice, poor people that do work as hard as they can die too. That just happens. You can make the ridiculous argument that no one who's poor works hard.
As hard as you can is taking out loans, going to college, and not majoring in something like gender studies. That's working as hard as you can.
That's ridiculous. Lots of people don't even have the financial ability to go to college, and then once you go to college, they don't get their stuff paid back.
Anybody can take out a loan. Anybody.
No, that's not true. You can't get a loan from a bank. The government will give you a small loan, but lots of banks won't give you a loan to go to college if they don't believe that you're going to pay back the loan in a timely manner.
But like,
so take out a loan that's far too big for you, and then risk not being able to pay it back in a timely manner just because the job market is so dry in America, and then risk having bad credit. And that's a ridiculous hypothetical scenario, but it does happen to people. So I'll give it to you that's like a real thing that happens. However, I think that the people should have the opportunity to work I don't think that college should be a thing where you don't work. I think that high wages should be reserved for people that go to college and work hard and do well in college. However, I think that everyone should be able to go to college without having to worry about incurring bad credit, right? That's a fair statement.
No.
Why not?
Because if you, again, I feel like
I've never worked before in my life, right? I'm 17 and I'm going to college.
And paying those back, taking out loans and paying those back, and is a sign.
But it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you have to take out loans, right?
No, of course not.
So who deserves to take out loans more?
What?
Who deserves a loan more? Someone whose parents are worth $10 million, or someone whose parents are both in prison, and someone
whose parents are both in prison.
Why do they deserve to take out a loan more if neither one of them?
Can I say it?
Yeah, sure.
Because their parents can't afford to send them to college by themselves.
So no, but we're not talking about the parents. We're talking about the kid. Why does the kid whose parents are richer deserve more than the kid whose parents are poor?
I said the other kid. I said the kid whose parents are both in prison.
Oh, and they deserve to go to college for free more?
No, not for free, but on a loan.
Why?
Because free college, again, that would cause an extreme tax on the rich, and I disagree.
No, it wouldn't. It would cost a 1 cent tax on every Wall Street transaction, the average of which is about $50. So it's less than 0.001%. But
are we talking about reforming the tax system so that everyone has to pay taxes, or are we talking about reforming the tax system so that only the rich are paying taxes? Because we're
talking about reforming the tax system in a way that generates the most prosperity for society, regardless of what that means. Because this is more of a fundamental discussion than a policy-based discussion. But I don't believe in free college. I think that you should have to pay it back in an ISA, regardless of your income level or your ability to pay when you go into college. When you get out of college, you should have to pay a certain percentage of your income back to the college, depending on your major. I think that that's the best solution. It's a free market solution. It doesn't require any infringement. It's a it's a what's it called? Consensual agreement between the college and the person going to the college. I think that that's the best solution. I'd advocate for that above free college. However, I do think that it is more important that we make it so that kids who are extremely poor have the ability to attend college when it's not their fault that they wouldn't be able to.
Again, everybody has the ability to attend just because you can't.
No, that's not true. That's just false. That's just false. That's just false. I'm sorry. I can't let you say that. Like that's just ridiculously false.
It's just not. Like, again, anybody can take out a loan. You would have to be like underage and have like a felony to not be able to take out a loan. Like
even if you can take out a loan, it's still an oppressive condition that prevents you from generating wealth. Whereas someone who's richer naturally can generate more wealth, and they don't deserve that opportunity ahead of you because their parents worked harder.
Again,
they just don't.
What I'm saying though, if your parents worked harder, like that's just how it is, and that's
but that's not how it should be. That's how it is, and not how it should be.
I disagree.
Why should it be like that? Why should
it's a cycle? Like my mom made
cyclical poverty is cyclical poverty is a good thing.
Sorry, what?
So cyclical poverty is not something that we should worry about addressing.
That's what I'm actually about to talk about right now. So my mom's parents had absolutely they were empty on money almost, and my mom took out loans, went to college, and now makes like $150,000.
Any individual can do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Any individual can do that. A large swath of people should be able to do that. Everyone in the hood should be able to do that, not just an individual from the hood.
Yeah, and most people can. Like I said,
no, that's not the case. Though. Most individuals can, but the majority of people couldn't.
Individuals make up people. What? I'm so confused. What?
Any individual, like if you have like 2,000 kids or whatever, 2,000 kids at a school, right? And it's, let's say it's an awful school. The education there is awful. You have, let's say, like 50 people at the school. You have 50 people at the school or whatever that could go to a top university depending on how well they do at the school, right? 200 kids from that school can't go to the top universities, right? That's just not possible.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my idea is that all 200 kids from that school that work hard in some way, shape, or form deserve educational opportunities the same as the other 50 do. Now, in reality, you have schools where maybe 5 kids out of 2,000 can go to a top university, and other schools where 2,000 kids out of 2,000 can go to a top university. I would say that it would be a more ethical system if 200 kids at every school could go to a top university.
But again, why does it have to be a top university? That's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, there aren't the same level of education at every school, but like if there were, then we would have a shortage of jobs because everybody would have the same. Like, we would have like a surplus of doctors, surplus of lawyers, etc. But like.
Well, I'm not talking about grad school. I'm not talking about I'm just talking about undergraduate programs. I'm not talking about law school or medical school. I think that those are different things that should be addressed separately.
If people went and if all schools were like that good, then everybody was able to get into those schools, then we would have a surplus of people.
It's not about being able to get into. I mean, I think you're thinking about what I'm saying is as these schools all wrong. I'm saying that everyone, like I consider a top university any university that can provide you a bachelor's degree that can make you $75,000 a year, which is like the super majority of schools in America. Now, lots of kids have to attend community colleges, which can't do that. Even though some can, and obviously I respect people that they go to community colleges and do that, but we're just talking about the idea that everyone deserves equal opportunity up to a certain point in their lives. People should not have to struggle because their parents did not do well, and I think that that's a fairly like simple ethical principle, but if you want to be entitled and selfish, then you can say...
You can get yourself out of that just because your parents didn't
that's like...
get yourself out of that.
You're saying that you'd rather poor people face significant barriers as children for their entire lives than have an equitable system, or you're fine with that because it's possible to overcome. You're fine with establishing obstacles because it's possible to overcome.
Yes,
that's idiotic. The obstacles shouldn't exist, and that would be a fair society, which we don't have right now.
I don't think society is designed to be fair, though.
And it should be. It should be.
Why?
It just should be.
Everything be fair?
From an ethical perspective, an egalitarian standpoint, everyone deserves equal opportunity because as humans, no one is naturally more valuable than another one. So I would say, So then people don't
Everybody
deserve more.
already has equal opportunity. Well,
No,
you
they
might-
don't. Absolutely not. That's just a falsehood. You're just misclassifying the definition of opportunity.
Under the law, and that's what matters.
Yeah, sure, under the law, and the law isn't the only institution. Even though there are lots of black people that can't.
Really matters if you think about it.
No, it's not. There are so many institutions that matter. Your educational institution matters. The public school system matters. Your access to water matters. Your the job opportunities in your community matters. Your ability to get a loan from a bank matters. Those are all different institutions that aren't legal.
They're not legally required to be given to you. That's the thing.
They're not exactly, which is why people face discrimination in them. And they should be legally required to be provided to you at a standard at which kids can live. Yeah, absolutely.
You need to be able to work for what you get. I don't see why that's.
And you should work for what you get. You should start at a baseline that's different than the baseline that we have right now. Are you against abolishing all public school?
What?
Are you against abolishing all public school?
No, I'm not.
Why not? Why not? Why do we provide public school to anyone? Why don't the kids work harder?
Because I feel like one of the few things that's good about, I guess you would call it socialism, is a socialized.
It's not socialism.
Public school is socialism. Yes, it's a form of socialism.
It's not. I mean, I guess I'll take that because I want you to be more socialist. But why do kids deserve public school?
Because we pay property taxes to go into them.
Okay, so if what if I don't want to pay property taxes? Should I have to pay property taxes? Are they stealing from me to provide public schools to people?
I actually would agree that property tax in a way is theft, but if you're paying for your house, it's not as bad as like income tax.
So we already agree. I already explained to you, and everyone understands that taxation is not theft in any way, shape, or form if it's democratically chosen.
It's factually theft.
Everyone already understands that in the chat.
Everyone
so there's no point in going back and
forth. What? Of course.
Well, yeah, there's no point in going back and forth about it because it seems like you're just not going to understand the principle, even though I definitely explained.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, why does anyone deserve to go to school based on property taxes? Why? Because
everybody pays them.
What?
Because everybody pays them.
But not everyone has a kid that goes to public school.
I agree with that, and I do think that should change about property taxes.
So your solution, and also if you buy a more valuable house, you pay more in property taxes, right? Mm-hmm. So does your kid deserve a better education?
If you pay more property tax?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, some schools are better than others. Like especially.
No, but I just want to know. Because there's a house down my street that's like half as expensive as my house. So do I deserve twice as good of an education because I pay twice as much in property taxes?
Do you go to the same school as the people who would live in that house?
I go to charter school, so it doesn't matter. But hypothetically,
zoned at the same school, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I'd be zoned at the same school. Yeah.
I know, because y'all are going to the same school.
Why don't I deserve more? Because I paid more.
Because you're not zoned to that school. That's how it works. I mean,
I paid more. That means you're stealing my money to get an education because my level of education is going down and theirs is going up as a result of me paying more.
Whose?
The other person that paid less in property taxes than I am.
But I don't understand what you're asking. What are you doing?
Why do I not deserve a better education than they do?
I mean, I don't know. You're zoned to the same school. If you think
the reason that I don't deserve a better education than them is because I don't pay taxes and they don't pay taxes, and we deserve the exact same opportunities as children who don't function in the system.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So then we can agree on that. We can agree that all children deserve educational opportunities.
Yes, all children do deserve educational opportunities. They're not.
Okay, and we can agree that they don't have them right now.
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't think anyone in the United this is ridiculous. You don't think anyone in the United States has a lack of educational opportunities. You don't think Chicago public schools are failing.
Educational opportunities in terms of high school, in terms of college. What are we talking about? Public
all encompassing. From preschool to college.
Everyone has the same opportunities in terms of college because anyone can go. But in high school is important too. High school is important too, and it also affects when you get into college, as we've already agreed on. It's like I said before with high school. But when you go to a worse school and you're in the top classes of that high school, it's going to be much easier than somebody who goes to a great school.
No, that's not true. It's not easier to go to Chicago public school than it is to go to like Packer in New York or whatever, like one of the super bougie private schools in New York.
I didn't say that. I said, but like somebody who's in the top of their class at one of those schools, like a Chicago high school, for example.
It's not as easy.
It's easier for them to get to the top.
No, it doesn't. It gets easier to get to the top and still harder to get into a top university. A kid with you don't have to
get into a top university to get a good education.
But you deserve the same opportunity to get into one, and you don't have it.
So, I mean, I'm not mad about that.
So it's unfair to the kids.
So
That's
you
the
believe
point.
in abolishing public school then?
No, I believe in making sure everyone has a baseline of education to where they can get into whatever university they want to go to.
If they're
Like, this is just
trash, how would we do that? I don't see how we have the control or the ability to do that.
I'll tell you how we do it. We do magnet schools in underprivileged communities with inbounds areas so that kids in underprivileged communities there would be an incentive to improve their education systems, because right now there is none. We'd create supplemental nutrition programs. We'd create programs in which high schoolers take middle schoolers and lower schoolers to schools, especially in single parent households, so that there's a higher chance that they're actually participating in the education system. We put therapists in schools. We would create nutrition programs in the communities with employees funded by the community so that people have the opportunity to be nourished at a young age and they can develop the full breadth of their intellectual capacity. That's what we do. That would be fair to the kids. You are saying that we should punish kids because their parents are poor, which is unfair. That's effectively what happens 100%, and that's undeniable. That's uncontroversial.
I don't think we should punish them, but I also don't think it's my job or your
job. We do
to pay for those things.
We do punish them, though. We are punishing children.
That it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be considered punishment. It shouldn't be that way.
But it is. It is. And that's an issue.
Shouldn't be punished, but it's also not my job to pay for all those.
So how do we fix that? If something that is true shouldn't be true, how do we fix the issue?
I don't know. I don't think that
the answer is society collectively decides. So like society collectively decides to charge you more rent for being in a society, charge you more rent for the security of a society, and effectually improve the quality of life of all of its citizens by charging you more rent for your prosperity generated as a result of the society.
Okay, so I mean, I don't think that, like, again, like I said, I don't think it's ethically speaking my job to pay for other people. Like, I can understand.
Yeah, I would say that you have.
I would contribute to that. I would contribute to charities that provide these things to kids.
What charity are you?
I'm not saying they exist. I'm saying if they did, I would absolutely contribute to those things.
No, you wouldn't. No, that's just a lie. Like, people love to say that, but no one would contribute the amount of money. Like not Bill Gates. Jeff Bezos could contribute less than 1% of his net worth and fix veteran homelessness. The people that lost their livelihoods, gained PTSD, lost limbs, serving this country, he could end veteran homelessness with less than 1% of his net worth, which he will never miss. The idea that rich people are getting rich and doing good things with the money is ridiculous. It just doesn't happen.
I didn't say they were. I didn't say they were doing good things with their money.
Yeah, they're not. They're hoarding it.
And I don't see an issue with that. If they made that money, more power to them.
They didn't make the money. The workers made the money with their idea, which is, I agree that they deserve a significant amount of money. I would have no issue with Jeff Bezos being worth 1% of what he is now and still being a multi-billionaire. Or not a multi-billionaire, significantly over $1 billion. And the reason is you don't miss every dollar over $1 billion. Like right now, like sitting here with me, you could not tell me how you would spend $1 billion.
No,
but that doesn't involve giving it away or investing it, right? So, I think that it's okay in certain scenarios to say that they've benefited so much, and Jeff Bezos has benefited so much from the creation of American society, the most robust market in the history of the world, the safest economy in the history of the world, as the result of the greatest rule of law in the history of the world. He's benefited so much from that we are going to say it cost, and right now he's paying 0 in taxes. We can say that it costs him at least 10% of all the value that he's generated as a result of the systems that America has, and then we will increase prosperity for the people that worked hard and fought and nearly died for this country. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I feel like if anybody deserves my tax money, it's veterans. I can agree with that. But people who are choosing not to work, or people who chose not to go to college, people who don't have, but you're looking at it as a choice because there's a trade-off, right? So like for some people, going to college means that their life will get significantly worse, at least for a short time, and they don't know whether they can do that, right? So when you go into like a lot of debt as a result of going to college, then if you have a medical complication, if you get cancer or something, you literally cannot do anything. You cannot get cancer treatment because you are so in debt and you don't have any money that you can loan out. A lot of people
you don't have a line of credit.
The right choice, and there are a lot of people who don't go to college that are like extremely rich.
But that's a worse choice. That you're choosing between two things that are worse than my opportunities right now, and I would advocate for a system in which you don't have to choose between two worse things than what I have right now. We're choosing between the same things. Now, whether we work hard enough to get there, that's up to us. But I think that every choice that you have the opportunity to make should be the exact same.
Yeah. So what's a choice that, or an opportunity, I suppose, that like a choice to make an opportunity, we'll put it that way, that you or I have that someone living in Chicago doesn't? A choice to make an opportunity, or an opportunity to make a choice.
So, for example, if I want to go to a $6,000 summer program, an academic summer program, which I have done before, I'm not going to disclose whether I got financial aid or not. I can do that during my summer. That makes my college resume stronger and helps me go to college. If I want to pay the $500 dues to do debate tournaments every year, which I do, I can pay that, and someone in Chicago who doesn't have a debate program at their school has to pay a debate coach, has to access the resources themselves. They literally cannot go to those debate tournaments, which is an opportunity that I had to strengthen my resume that they don't have. If I want to pay an SAT tutor to help me get my SAT score up 100 points, I can do that, and they cannot do that. Those people should be held accountable for not choosing to get an SAT tutor or whatever. I don't necessarily think that that's something that people should have access to, but like that's like the gist of something. If you have the opportunity to do that as easily as I do, and you choose not to do it, you should be held accountable. But if you don't even have the opportunity to do it as easily as I do, you should have that opportunity. And people won't take them, and those people will deserve to be poor, or not poor, but like significantly poorer than I am because I worked harder than them. They don't deserve to be at the level of poverty that they're currently at.
No, I agree. People I completely agree with trying to get people out of poverty, but giving welfare checks is not the way to do that. Wouldn't you rather a fishing pole than a gift?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which is why I'm for like stuff like educational programs and like community-sponsored nutritional assistance programs where you have subsidized grocery stores that only hire members of the community. And you have programs where like older members of the community walk younger members of the community to school for a little bit of money so that you can ensure that all kids are enrolling and participating in the public school system. It's stuff that incentivizes actual participation and upward mobility. And if you don't take it, because I think that food stamps are bad, because the thing is right now living off of food stamps is just as comfortable as getting a minimum wage job. And I think that that's an issue. I think that there should be opportunities.
Yes.
I think that there should be opportunities to actually advance past getting a minimum wage job. And then if people don't take those opportunities, that's their fault, but they don't exist right now. So
and I can agree with some of the things you said in terms of like making a little like people walking people to school for a little bit of money. I can agree with things like that. It's just whenever extreme taxation comes in that it becomes a problem for me, because that makes for too big of government, in my opinion.
I mean, obviously, my ideas, and I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist, because I think that there are lots of cultural barriers in the way. But in a utopian society, obviously, everyone would work together and there would be no money.
Right.
Like that's your utopia or whatever, and there's no government either because people just work together collectively. I mean, there's effectually a government, but the institution of power is people just working together, like willingly. And I think that's like the argument about whether like far left, the divergence between far left libertarianism and far right libertarianism is just whether human nature is generous or selfish. And I think it's a combination betwing the two. And I think that society.
I feel like humans are naturally selfish. I think we can agree on that.
I disagree with. I think that there are tendencies. I think that that's just like too unilateral and basic. Basic way of describing it.
But a lot of humans are naturally selfish.
Well, yeah, but like you said you give to charity, right? There's no reason for you to do that. There's no selfish reason for you to do that. It's just a generous thing. There are scenarios in which we're generous and scenarios in which we're selfish. And I think that there's like a balance that we need to find in society where people can be generous enough while also being selfish enough to be prosperous themselves. And I think that we're far more to the selfish side of that spectrum than we should be right now. We can shift a little bit over, at least back to the 35% corporate tax rates, which is an effective 22% corporate tax rate.
Yeah, I don't disagree with taxing businesses and stuff like that. I feel like, business should absolutely be taxed. And if anything, they should be taxed more than your individual. Because again, I feel like even though I may not agree with taxation, income taxation, I feel like to some extent it's necessary to keep a society running. So yeah.
All right. Well, it's been an hour and 20 minutes, so I gotta hop off. But it was a good discussion. I feel like we made a good bit of progress in actually like talking to each other.
Yeah.
thank you for coming on, and
Yeah, no, thank you.
have a good night. Be safe during quarantine.
Me too. All right.
All right,
Bye.
bye.